Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We are so glad you are here with us today. We are tackling a paradox that I think haunts pretty much everyone in leadership. It doesn't matter if you're running a massive logistics fleet or, managing a small creative agency. You know that specific gnawing feeling where the team is sweating, the hours are long, the Slack channels are buzzing, but the actual growth,
Yeah.
the operational excellence, it just feels stuck.
It's the classic treadmill scenario. Lots of movement, heart rate is through the roof, a lot of noise, but you look down and you haven't actually gone anywhere.
Yes, you're just exhausted in the same spot you started. That is the absolute worst feeling. And the question we're exploring today is, how do you stop running in place? How do you spot a small operational issue, a leak in the hull, before it becomes, a quarterly disaster?
Well, it really comes down to the difference between running a business on vibes or gut feeling versus running it on disciplined oversight.
And to help us navigate this, we are diving into a comprehensive guide titled Designing a Performance Management System by Greystride. Now, looking at the source material, this has a specific lens on South African organizations and logistics. We're talking fleets, fuel prices.
Difficult road infrastructure, all of that.
Right. But as I was reading through this, I realized this framework is actually a universal masterclass in organizational discipline.
It really is. The principles are just so transferable. Greystride might be talking about reducing fuel consumption on the N3 highway, but the architecture of the system, how you build accountability and visibility, that applies just as much to a software team trying to reduce bugs.
Or a retail chain managing inventory. So our mission for this deep dive isn't just to talk about spreadsheets or KPIs for the sake of it. We want to map out what Greystride calls a practical roadmap. How to turn raw, messy data into a tool that actually drives results.
And that is such a crucial distinction, isn't it? We aren't just collecting data to make pretty charts. We are trying to build a bridge between what we hope to achieve and how we actually get there.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning. Because usually when a manager decides we need to fix performance, their first instinct is to open Excel and start measuring everything that moves. I need to know how many coffees were consumed, how many keystrokes were typed.
And that is the trap. That is the quickest way to fail. You create a noise machine, not a signal machine.
But the source is pretty adamant. Stop, put the spreadsheet away.
Right. The first rule, according to the Greystride framework, is strategy first, numbers second. If you dive straight into the data without a clear plan, you're just going to drown. You have to start with strategic objectives.
Okay, so before I decide to measure how many emails my sales team sends, I need to ask a bigger question.
You need to ask the big question, what actually matters right now? You have to identify your top priorities. The source gives some great examples here. Are you trying to improve on-time delivery?
Or maybe the main goal is reducing operating costs.
Or boosting driver retention? That's a huge one.
There was one example I liked because it showed how granular this needs to be, expanding market share specifically in the Western Cape.
That's a great one because it's specific. It's not just grow, it's grow here. And that specificity changes everything you measure.
Right. If you just say grow, you might measure total revenue. If you say grow in the Western Cape, you're measuring route density in that one province.
Exactly.
But here is where I usually get overwhelmed, and I think a lot of listeners do too. I can think of like 50 things I want to improve.
And that's how you end up with a dashboard that looks like the cockpit of a 747 and nobody knows what to look at. The source is very strict on this. You need to follow the rule of 3-5.
Only 3 to 5 objectives. That feels risky. Like I'm leaving things on the table.
It feels risky, but it's absolutely necessary for survival. If everything is a priority, nothing is. You need that laser focus. You can always tackle the other 45 things next year. Pick the 3 that move the needle now.
Okay, so let's say we've narrowed it down. We picked our 3 goals. How do we connect that abstract goal to, the actual work people do on a Tuesday morning?
You map it to a value driver. This is a concept I love. It's about linking the goal to the business result. So take the logistics example. If your objective is reduce fuel spend by 5%, the value driver isn't just spending less on gas.
It's margin improvement.
It's margin improvement. You're connecting the day-to-day action to the bottom line.
Right.
Or take driver retention. If you keep your drivers, what's the value driver? It's operational stability and reduced training costs. When employees understand why a metric matters, they are much more likely to engage with it.
That makes so much sense. So we have our strategy, we've identified the value. Now can we talk about the KPIs?
Now I can talk about the numbers. This brings us to phase 2, the art of choosing KPIs.
Key performance indicators.
Right. And again, there is a delicate balance here. Too many metrics, you dilute your focus. But too few, you risk missing the warning signs.
The source outlines 4 specific categories to ensure you have a holistic view. I want to walk through these because they really cover the bases. It's almost like a balanced diet for your business.
That's a good way to put it. You can't just eat carbs.
So the first category is financial.
The obvious one. In the logistics context, Greystride uses the example of operating cost per kilometer.
Which tracks efficiency on every single route, a hard number.
It is. But if you only look at money, you might make bad decisions. Cut costs so much your service falls apart, so you need the second category, operational.
This is about reliability, right? Doing what you said you would do.
Yes. The example here is on-time delivery rate, a percentage. It tells you if you are actually fulfilling the promise. If your cost per kilometer is low, but your on-time delivery is 50%, you won't have a business for long.
You're just efficiently disappointing people.
Exactly.
Which leads perfectly into the third category, customer.
This is one that often gets ignored in favor of the hard operational data, but it's vital. The example given is the NPS, or Net Promoter Score.
I love that because you could have great financial numbers this month, but if your NPS is tanking, you know your financial numbers are going to crash next month. It's like a crystal ball.
It's a leading indicator. Financials are lagging indicators. They tell you what already happened. NPS tells you what will happen.
And that brings us to the fourth and possibly most overlooked category, people.
The human element. The source suggests tracking employee turnover rate.
Why is that one so critical in a performance dashboard?
Yeah.
Usually that just sits in an HR file somewhere.
Because it flags culture issues early. If your drivers are leaving, there's an underlying problem. High turnover creates instability, increases training costs, and eventually hurts that operational KPI.
It's all connected. If you lose your people, you miss your deliveries, your customers get mad, and your cost per kilometer goes up.
Precisely. You cannot view these in isolation. And there's one actionable tip in this section that I found really valuable. Benchmarking.
Right. Context is everything.
The source specifically mentions setting realistic targets by benchmarking against comparable South African fleets, using data from industry associations.
That's so important because good is relative. If my fuel cost is X, I might think that's terrible. But if the market shows fuel prices just went up 20% nationwide, maybe I'm actually doing okay.
Exactly. Don't just guess. Look at what the market is doing. In South Africa, you need local benchmarks, not generic global ones.
Right. So we have our strategy. We've picked our KPIs across those 4 buckets. Now what? How do we make sure people understand it?
This is phase 3, visualizing success. We need to talk about the dashboard.
Oh, I have seen some terrible dashboards in my time. Just rows and rows of numbers, tiny font. It makes your eyes glaze over. It feels like homework.
And that defeats the whole purpose. The design philosophy here is intuitive dashboards.
Yeah.
It needs to answer one question immediately. At a glance, how are we tracking?
So how do we achieve that? At a glance, clarity.
It starts with visual hierarchy. Think of a newspaper front page. The top row of your dashboard is for your 3 most critical indicators.
The things that if they go wrong, the house is on fire.
Exactly. And the secondary stuff goes below. And to make it even faster to read, you use the traffic light system.
Green, amber, red.
It sounds almost childish, but it is so psychologically powerful.
Yeah.
Green is good, amber is watch out, red means stop what you're doing and fix this.
But what if I see a red light? Let's say my fuel costs are flashing red. What then?
No panic, just investigation. That is where drill down capability comes in. You should be able to click on that high-level indicator and see the breakdown. Is it a specific region, a specific vehicle?
You go from the macro warning to the micro detail in one click.
Spot on. And here is where the source offers some specific local insight for the South African context.
Oh, this was interesting. It's about external factors, right?
Yes. In South Africa, you have fluctuating fuel prices and toll fees that have a massive impact. A good dashboard tracks these costs in real time.
So if the price of diesel spikes, you see it immediately on the dashboard.
And because you see it immediately, you can adjust. You can change your routing strategies. You can renegotiate contracts. You are reacting in real time, not waiting for the end-of-month report to tell you that you lost money 3 weeks ago.
That is the difference between being passive and active. It turns the dashboard into a steering wheel rather than a rear-view mirror. But, and this is a big but, a dashboard is useless if nobody looks at it.
That is the absolute truth. This brings us to phase 4, the rhythm of review.
The cadence.
The cadence. The source breaks this down beautifully. It's not just have a meeting, it's about having different types of meetings.
Okay, walk us through this.
Mm.
Because death by meeting is a real fear for people.
It is, but these are structured to save time, not waste it. It starts with the daily stand-up.
How long?
10 to 15 minutes, maximum. Everyone stands up, literally, so nobody gets too comfortable.
And what's the focus?
Immediate red flags, a quick snapshot, truck 4 is down, shipment B is delayed. You're just identifying what's on fire right now.
Okay, I can do 15 minutes. What's next?
Then you have the weekly team review. This is a bit longer, 30 to 45 minutes. Here, you dive into trends.
And you bring in more people, I assume?
Yes, you involve ops, finance, HR. You are looking for root causes. Why did that shipment get delayed? You're looking for patterns.
Then we move up the ladder.
The monthly executive briefing, an hour long. This is for senior leadership. You present consolidated results, highlight strategic themes, what is slipping, where do we need to allocate more resources.
And finally,
the quarterly strategy session. This is a half-day event. The big picture check. You look at those long-term objectives and you ask, are these KPIs still relevant?
that's a key point.
Yeah.
But before that, there was a pro tip in the source about these meetings.
The agenda template.
Yes.
Crucial. You need an agenda that allocates specific time for wins, opportunities, and decisions.
Decisions being the key word.
If you leave a meeting without a decision, you just had a nice chat, not a meeting.
So we have the strategy, the metrics, the dashboard, the meetings. But there's one final piece of the puzzle.
Phase 5, culture, accountability, and evolution.
Because a system is only as strong as the people running it.
Exactly. You can't automate culture. The source emphasizes ownership. Every single KPI needs a specific owner.
Not a department.
No, a person. A name. Someone who is responsible for that data integrity and the action plans. If everyone is responsible for fuel costs, then no one is.
That sounds high pressure.
It can be, but on the flip side of responsibility is recognition.
Celebration.
It is so important to publicly recognize teams that hit their targets. It builds momentum. It creates healthy competition. If the only time you talk about KPIs is when numbers are bad, your team will hate the dashboard.
Right. The dashboard is just the stick they beat us with.
Exactly. But if you use it to celebrate wins, hey, look at the Western Cape team. They hit 99% efficiency this week.
Yeah.
Then people start to engage with it.
That is such a good point. It becomes a tool for success, not a mechanism for punishment.
Precisely. And the final element of culture is the willingness to iterate. The source says you must iterate and evolve.
This goes back to that quarterly review.
Yes. You have to ask, does this metric still drive the right behavior?
Give me an example of when you drop a metric, because usually we just add more.
That's hoarding, not management. Let's say you had a massive problem with invoicing errors. You set a KPI, you tracked it, you fixed it. Now, for 6 months, your accuracy has been 99.9%.
Problem solved.
Problem solved. So stop tracking it as a top-tier crisis metric. It's obsolete. Move it to a maintenance dashboard and elevate a new problem to the top row.
Don't let your dashboard become a museum of past problems.
I love that phrasing. Yes. It needs to reflect your current strategy, not the one you had 2 years ago.
Now, Greystride does mention that this can feel like a lot to implement alone.
It can. Integrating data flows, getting your fleet software to talk to your finance system, that is technically complex. The source touches on the value of external guidance here, not just for the tech, but for coaching leaders.
Right, teaching executives how to actually interpret these metrics.
Because data without interpretation is just noise. You need leaders who can look at that dashboard and drive productive discussions.
So let's recap the journey we've been on today. It really is a full cycle, isn't it?
It is. You start by defining your strategy, those 3 to 5 clear goals. Then you pick balanced KPIs across financial, operational, customer, and people.
Then you visualize it with intuitive dashboards using that traffic light system.
Then you set a rigorous review, cadence daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, so the data actually gets used.
And finally, you build the culture. Ownership, celebration, and being willing to evolve.
And if you do all that, you move from gut feeling to disciplined oversight.
And that is relevant whether you are running a logistics fleet in South Africa or a small creative team in London. The principle is the same.
It's the difference between hoping for growth and engineering growth.
Before we wrap up, I want to leave our listener with a thought based on that quarterly review concept.
Go for it.
We talked about dropping obsolete KPIs. I want you to look at your current weekly report or that dashboard you check every morning. Ask yourself, if you never have to change your KPIs or your targets, are you actually stable? Or have you just stopped growing?
That is a provocative question. If the target is always easy to hit, or if the metric never changes, you probably aren't pushing hard enough. Comfort is the enemy of growth.
Which of your current metrics are obsolete without you even realizing it? Something to mull over before your next strategy session. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Always a pleasure.
We'll catch you next time.